Yes, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Today we're going to have a webinar to talk about coding clubs, both from the perspective of libraries as well as after-school programs. So really excited to share what we've learned over the past 5 or 6 years working with tons of different organizations in this space. And so with that, just before I kind of kick into our discussion, just a quick overview of Vidcode and who I am. My name is Allie. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Vidcode. We are a K through 12 coding course platform for schools, libraries, parents, and students to learn text-based programming. We're very typically a next step after Scratch, or a block-based programming learning platform. And so a lot of people come to us for that next step, kind of upper elementary, middle school, high school, and adult learners who want to learn text-based programming in a really fun, creative, highly visual way. So just a little bit about Vidcode, who we are, and our experience. And yeah, like I said at the beginning, I've had one of my favorite things about this job is being able to collaborate with so many cool organizations. So today I'll share a couple of those use cases, and we'll kick it off from there. Also, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. Leandro will make sure to relay them to me. And we'll also have time for Q&A at the end. I'll do about a 15-minute presentation before that. So here we go. Okay, so I mentioned before, we're going to go, there's a couple kind of use cases that we're covering today. But this really could, depending on, who's at the webinar today, this really can be applied to libraries, to virtual schools, to K through 12 schools, as well as after school programs. So I'm going to start by jumping right into a use case. So we've had the pleasure of partnering with the Queens Library in New York City over the last 2 years. And they currently have a really wonderful coding program that they've launched in terms of coding clubs and summer camps for really youth. They're focused on youth all the way through high school across the Queens city. And so in this particular implementation, this will be a good example of a multi-branch or multiple libraries. You could even think of that in a school sense, multiple kind of sites launching at once to impact a high volume of students, usually about 500 kids in both in-person as well as virtual learning opportunities. So the first experience offered that I'll kind of explain here is the summer camp. So at Queens Library, they have a wonderful coding summer camp that they've launched for students age 9 to 13. It's run by their site librarians. It's a part of their larger STEM program. And in this case, they've leveraged the Vidcode online tutorials within this program. And so, when we're talking to, in this case, libraries and schools, the amount of training as well as the commitment to outcomes for students are like two really important things that can be a lot to think about and juggle. So in this particular case of Queens Library, I think they've done a really good job of creating structure at the beginning for big impact, and then running the program throughout the year in a couple different ways, their particular coding program. And so, in this case, and actually before I jump into the outcomes, I didn't give myself the demo slide reminder, but I want to go ahead and show you guys what the students are creating. And I'll go ahead and switch into a demo for that, but just to give a little more context for the summer camp before I show you what the students are actually creating in the camp. So at the Queens Library, in this particular implementation, students work independently and they create up to 30 projects per camp. Again, this is run by a site librarian. And this is an enrolled program for their summer. but there still is a lot of that kind of drop-in experience as well. And what are students creating? They're creating project-based learning, coding projects, as well as digital portfolios and final showcase. And that's why I want to take a moment to switch out of my presentation into a quick demo to show you guys. So here I am at the Vidcode site. I wanted to also mention this because everyone today who's on the webinar or joining or watching the recording, you can create a free account on Vidcode. Just go to create account, press educator. That's for anyone who's leading a workshop or wants to deliver materials to learners. I'm going to go ahead and sign up with my email here. All right, go ahead and press submit. Let's skip this step. All right, and so here I am in the Vidcode platform. I'm going to go ahead and press start coding. This is what the patrons or students or participants in your coding club where they would go to if they were, in their first day of attendance. So, let's imagine we're at the Queens Library summer camp right now. This is where students would begin. And so what are students learning? They're learning web programming, they're learning computer science, they're learning computational thinking, and it's all through a very project-based creative learning technique. And this, so I'm going to go ahead. And so the very first steps, if I'm in the summer camp as a student, I have the site librarian who's introduced the concept like, hey, we're going to make a video filter today with code. Then myself as a learner, either in the workshop itself, or maybe I missed that day and I just, catch up at home, which is also great. The first thing I'm going to do as a learner is select a video. This can be a sample video from the library here. It could also be something I'm uploading from, my library, or maybe it's my homework that week or something, which is really cool. So that can be customized here, but I'm going to upload that video. I'm going to start going through these self-guided instructions on the left. And here I'm being introduced to what is programming, what is JavaScript, what is web programming, all these like multi-layer concepts, but in a really fun interactive way. As I do that, I'm going to start to learn how to type my own customizations into this particular web sketch and start to make it my own. And so again, especially with a lot of the libraries and after school programs that we work with, having this immediacy, very relevant, especially if it's being used in a children's or a youth center, connected to multimedia. You can also integrate this if you have a Photoshop or a Microsoft Word or anything like that. There's a ton of different directions you can go here that I highly recommend leveraging. And so after we're done here, I can go ahead and submit the project, view it, and as a learner, I have this unique URL that I can share with anyone. It's not associated with any private data. I can also go back and edit it, remix it, share it with my friends, family, community. So we don't have a lot of time to cover all that today, but I just wanted to give an example of what students are doing in each of these day or week or week-long after-school programs. So with that, I am going to switch back to my presentation. All right. And so in moving through, this Queens Library example, this particular after-school program they have a research component to it. So that's kind of cool. Not every library or school we work with has that going on, but in this case, Queens Library was able to do pre and post assessments and in-person visits, which was really cool. And so as Queens Library found a lot of success in their summer program, they found the students creating tons of projects, engaged with the curriculum, able to explain what they learned in terms of JavaScript at the end. And that created a lot of success in their summer STEM program. So they actually decided to move it into a year-long program after school as well. So this program emulates a bit of what I was talking about with the summer STEM program. It's also run by site librarians, but it's not something that kids sign up for the summer. It's a drop-in program. So definitely wanted to point that out, that it can really easily morph from one to the other in a powerful way. And you know, during this research that the Queen's Library was doing, they heard one of their students say in the after-school program throughout the year that I'm really excited to be able to learn about coding in a way that I can see applying to and helping the robotics team I am in at my school right now. And so that's something really important to think about with these after-school camps and summer camps too, is, you know, what are kids learning in school? How can we both kind of align to that and propel it? And so this is one way that I'm sharing today, which is taking web programming, text-based programming, but it's creative, it's collage-like, and it's a little bit different still, but still kind of standards aligned with what kids are doing in school. So that's kind of the cherry on top there, I think. We mentioned recruiting in our webinar description. I definitely don't want to skip over that. That's something that I think we're all experimenting with, you know, from a school library and after school perspective. I just wanted to share here how different libraries were, you know, advertising different coding resources as a way to also just online bring attention to their programs. And in the case of Queens, I know there's a lot of recruitment on the ground as well for in-person workshops. I'm just going to check the time. Not doing too bad. So, you know, another thing that's really important, you know, when we are working with after-school partners and libraries is that, you know, students leave these experiences that can be kind of, you know, after school, you know, you're missing sessions, there's a lot going on. It's really important to still leave with a solid understanding of computer science concepts. That's, you know, with all this fun stuff and all this creation, you know, that's also something that's like really valuable takeaway. And at Vidcode, we've partnered with a third-party researcher in the education space called West Education. And so that little tutorial that I demoed for you guys today with the dinosaur and the filter, Weston has actually studied Vidcode's first 10 hours of our curriculum, which includes making customized filters, making a meme, making a digital animation. And they've studied core CS concepts like variables, loops, what you would want your kids to know, or even adults to know going into learning any programming language. And we've been able to study and assess that, which is really early. There's not a lot of research right now in computer science learning outcomes. And we were able to find that after just 10 hours using this club kit, this Vidcode club kit, students left with a statistical increase in their computer science learning outcomes, which is huge. And that just continues. So that's definitely something we're thinking about as a part of this conversation is, yes, let's have fun, let's make it open-ended, and underneath all that is core concepts, and that's what makes it really great. So I shared a use case of the Queen's Library today, their summer STEM program, as well as their year-long after-school program. I also wanted to point to an example of an after-school program run by a different organization, which is, in this case, Girl Scouts of Greater New York. They have a program called Breaking the Code, very similar structure to the Queen's Museum in that it's a year-long after-school program. But in this case, let me skip, or actually, in this case, Girl Scouts recruits students from local schools all over the greater New York City area and invites them to be in this after-school program. So this is not a drop-in program, so to speak, which is, you know, goes to show that they can both be really great in different ways. And so a little bit about this program. This is more focused on girls, you know, very much kind of expanding and broadening reach program. And in this particular case, because there's kind of a Girl Scouts curriculum here too. Here, there's the opportunity to teach coding, filmmaking, and leadership development. So I wanted to show this as an example in the after school space, because a lot of the coding that we're talking about today can be paired with any other theme. This is the theme that Girl Scouts of Greater New York chose, but I definitely want everyone in this webinar walking away with, those purple and blue circles there could really be filled with anything. So if you have a summer STEM camp, or if you have an after school program, I've talked to some people recently who have a Harry Potter theme, which I thought was kind of neat. That can be the complementary curriculum here. And there's so many different ways to do that. But in the little demo that I showed today, again with the dinosaur, and you can see it's really the kind of multimedia side that allows you to upload different characters or different themes, or maybe you have a summer reading program. It allows your patrons and your students to upload books or images that relate to what they're reading. So all of that's super important and super customizable. All right, and so there's so much research in this. I just wanted to quickly show that another kind of metric of success, I think, of the after school program is students having more confidence in their coding abilities. That's something that I think really is created by having, a fun, engaging curriculum, staff that's around that feels supported, doesn't feel burdened down by the curriculum or the platform itself. And so in this case, with Girl Scouts Breaking the Code program, they found that after girls all over New York City, after doing 10 weeks of JavaScript coding with Girl Scouts of Greater New York and Vidcode, the confidence in their coding abilities went from 37% to 89%. That's so cool. And I definitely think that having the filmmaking side, or again, that thematic, that theme that really relates to that particular program. In this case with Girl Scouts, it was filmmaking. But I think that's just a really big achievement. So something else that we can measure. So with that was a lot of information. I really just broke down 2 use cases today, which is the Queens Library, summer STEM camps, and then kind of 2 after school examples. This really just scratches the surface of all the different ways that I hear of after school programs and libraries and schools offering these types of opportunity. Each one is a unique snowflake for sure. And so I almost hate giving examples because they're never all exactly the same. But I wanted to give these 2 today as they're really 2 multi-branch examples. But if you do have a single school, or if you're at a single classroom situation, you can imagine kind of applying it, hopefully in that case as well. But with that in mind, I would love to open up questions in these last couple of minutes. Any questions? Yeah, Leandra, I can't access the chat box right now, so let me know.
It doesn't look like anyone has asked
Cool.
anything. Someone
That's
just
great.
asked about, we have a couple about the cost.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, so I want to type in the slide right now. So cost, so Vidcode has, we work with after school programs in a couple different ways. We have our free coding kit that you can just leave today with. You can sign up as an educator, share that with people, explore. And then from there, we have a site license, kind of jump into the branch level, the examples that I give today. Those were really site license situations, which are typically $2,900 a year for either, a single building with up to 10 staff. And that's what we really do, is we support the staff, but in a really kind of lo-fi way. We like to say that for the price of 1 day of in-person PD, we can train and support up to, again, kind of 5 to 10 of your fellow teachers or librarians or volunteers to customize and run your own program. Now, there are also price levels in between. We have an unlimited educator account, which is $600. I always say that's great for like, you know, the lone soldier who's out there to just impact as many students as possible with code. And then the site license is really for that kind of movement or cohort. If you already know that you have kind of an idea for, you know, launching either, you know, a half-year-long summer program, something like that. And, you know, with either of those pricing structures, we give a lot of insight and planning and advice from our side too. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Any other questions?
No others right now.
Cool. Cool.
Oh, here we go. So if you've never done coding before, is it possible to learn along the way with your patrons/students?
Yeah, that's a great question. 100%. So the way that, actually I'm gonna switch back into the demo really quick here. Such a Zoom.
But yeah, that's such a good question. We have questions all the time about, like, especially like teachers that are new to coding. Sometimes they get thrown into a coding class, or a lot of times like a librarian that wants to start a club, like maybe they don't have coding experience. And so Allie's going to show you some resources that we've put together, like specifically for that kind of librarian or that kind of teacher.
Yeah, exactly what Leander said. It's really plug and play, but just an important resource if you guys set up your accounts today. So this is the screen you'll kind of be hit with right when you sign up. If you go to add students, you will be taken to the educator portal, then just go straight to lesson plans. Creative filter is what I demoed today. And so this is the cheat sheet for adults. And so whoever's kind of running the workshop, whether it's a volunteer or a librarian, teacher or staff, whatever adults in the room can use this PDF to, you know, typically print it out the night before, circle, it definitely doesn't all have to be done. Maybe circle a couple things that they want on the wall, vocab words, and then there's also a sample solution in here, really important. So that, you know, and again, no coding knowledge required from whoever is running the classroom, but this is a fun way to open up the sample solution, maybe on a projector, especially if it's independent learning in person, open it up, cover up the code, and show students, hey, we're gonna make this today with code, and then set them off on their ways with the self-guided instructions. Awesome question.
One more question from Alex. What kinds of lessons are available and what kind of subjects do they cover? So with this free account, you're gonna have access to, I think, like 12 tutorials. And they're really across the board. Allie is showing you now. But everything from like augmented reality to that filter that you saw to more puzzles, like problem solving. And then if you go up into starter projects, Allie, these are all like specifically cross-curricular. So Code the News is great in like a social studies class or like a ELA class. There's plastic pollution, which works really well in a science class. Sorry, I'll let you.
No, that's great. That's great. And no, Leandra gave a great, I wouldn't even add to that. This is the perfect place to jump in. Again, I would, you know, if I was to coin a term, it's highly project-based kind of design and technology approach to computer science. But there's so many different ways to describe it. Great question. Yeah, no, and I was just going to mention, definitely shout out if you see any other questions later, but I was just going to mention we're going to follow up with everyone who's on the webinar with both a recording of this webinar as well as some curriculum breakdowns and kind of suggested takeaways, as well as a brochure that has all the text I shared about the Queen's Library implementation. So we'll be emailing that to you guys. Please sign up for our educator account. We'd love it. We'd love to hear from you. That little chat box goes straight to our team down in the bottom right. And you can also always email us, or kind of going back to this final slide, follow us on Twitter, or email us direct. I'm going to put my email here. Awesome. So with that, I think we are going to wind it down. I'll go back to the pretty page here. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. Really fun to talk about after school coding clubs. We'll be hosting another one in not too long. So thank you again. Have a great day.